This is the ultimate survival bow. Why do I say that? Not because it's my only one. I have 13 bows, and I brought 4 of them here for you to look at. And this is one of my slowest and one of my cheapest. So why do I say that it is the ultimate survival bow? Well, let's talk about it. Yeah, so when you're talking archery and bows that you could possibly use for survival, you basically got 3 different types. You got your recurve bows, you got your compound bows, and then you got your crossbows. Well, here is the Excalibur crossbow. It is so it would be what you want, because it proves that you don't need wheels to fly, because it's just a simple recurve technology. You can change the string, you can tighten it up if it loosens. You don't need a bow press, and they're just almost indestructible. You see Excalibur all the time, they're just trashing them, dragging them behind 4-wheelers, throwing them out of helicopters, and they still shoot bullseyes, leaving them drawed back, running them over with side-by-sides or 4-wheelers. They're as tough as nails. It's the toughest thing you're going to get for if you wanted a survival crossbow. Very fast. Your crossbow is probably going to be your fastest. You got your sight, so it's like shooting a gun, and you look through, you got your reticles for your different ranges, and you have to be square with it. The string's pulled back on the rail to the trigger, so your draw length's going to be the same every time, your release is going to be the same every time, and your form's going to be the same every time. It takes all that out. It's I do actually find I'm better with my compound bow when it comes to shooting offhand, because it is a little front heavy, but you can shoot very accurate with it offhand. But if you add a tripod like this trigger stick here, quickly set it up, and at this point, this is by far the most accurate archery equipment there is. But now it is heavy, I can take it down, but it is bulkier to walk through the woods. Another advantage though is you draw it back and you can sit and wait and you're ready to go. But it will take you a long time to it takes longer to reload than any of the other ones. It is heavier than any of the other ones, and you do have a trigger mechanism which could possibly fail you. But other than that, I know Walking Dead made it very famous there, but this would be an excellent survival bow, but it's not my number one. So the next we have the compound bow. This one's a 70-pound compound. I actually got it at 74 pounds. It shoots IVO is 133. It's almost as fast as my crossbow, and this is my favorite bow to shoot or hunt with. It is just it's more fun than the crossbow. It's extremely accurate, just as accurate. This is actually my most accurate bow to shoot offhand. Like if I'm just drawing back and firing, this is the bow I'm going with, because it's just extremely accurate. And as you draw it back, shouldn't do it without an arrow, but as long as I don't release it, it'll be fine. But as you draw it back, you got 70 pounds, and then it cuts off there. Now I'm holding about 7 to 10 pounds. So that makes it a lot easier for hunting. It's a very fast bow, and it's lighter than the crossbow, but it's heavier than your recurve bow, and you can't take this down at all. Now where the problems come in is this string here. You ain't making that, you ain't fixing that. If that comes loose, the cams come out of adjustment. It needs to be put in a bow press to get it all back in tune again. This string, you're not putting paracord on here. Even if you have an extra string, you need a bow press to even work on it. Even with my release here, that ties into the cable here. But you got the kisser button here, that touches here, so you know you got your draw. But you also got a back wall on this one as well. You go a D-ring instead of a knocking point, and then you got your arrow rest. You got your peep sight back here, which will halo your pin sight. Then you have your different ranges. This is a hunting sight, not a compound sight, and just remember that. So you got your 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 yards. I'm missing my 50-yard pin. But anyways, so even though it's my favorite bow, it is my 3rd favorite for an emergency survival situation, because if anything goes wrong with it, I have to go to a shop and put it on a press. And there's more things to go wrong with it, with all the cams and just there's a lot more that can go wrong, and if it comes out of tune, it will not be flying nice. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bow. If I just had to go for like a couple weeks, this would definitely be the one I'd chose. But But in a long-term situation, you got to go with the takedown recurve bow here, because it's lightweight. There is absolutely nothing to go wrong with it. You can kill any animal you want with it. It is my slowest bow. The other one, the compound, is 333 feet per second. The crossbow is 340 feet a second. You can get crossbows going up to 400, 509 feet a second. I think the fastest one is right now at 10 point. But then you're dealing with cams and it's gonna blow up on you. And but yeah, this one here, they're super lightweight. You can change your strings and there's just very little to go wrong with it. And you can break them down and you're left with just that. So you can easily slide that into your backpack. So that is another major advantage to the recurve takedown bow. But now the problem is you have no shooting aids, you have no sighting, so it's all instinctive shoot. You got to shoot and shoot and shoot to be accurate with it. And if you're using like gap theory, where you're using the tip of your arrow to aim and then gapping it, well, if you change your broadheads from like a little thumper for small game to a 2-blade longer broadhead, well, now your points change the distance and that is going to mess you up. So let's get to my #1 bow, which is this, the recurve takedown bow. So it's lightweight, packable, nothing to go wrong. But to make it, and then I also added a fishing reel to it. It's just a barrel, so there's no winding, wheelie, bearings, anything to go wrong, because you just want it to be reliable. And then you got your fishing arrow, which will shoot through the fish or a duck or a beaver or goose, whatever, weasels, anything that's out, anything you see in the water, you can take it, shoot it, and then you don't got to go into cold water to go get it, possibly going into hypothermia, and you're also not losing your arrows into the bottom of the lake or floating down rivers. So I think that is very key to survival. On the back, I switch this out with a D-ring, so I can shoot it with either my fingers or I can use a release aid, which makes it so I never have plucking the strings. I added the kisser button like you would have on your compound bow, so you draw that back and to the corner of your lip there, so your draw is the same every time. You're getting your height and everything the same every time. Then I added the hunting sight. This is not a compound sight. Don't let people confuse you there. All it is a multi-range sight. On a recurve bow, you're usually going to see like an Olympic shooter. They're going to be using a single pin because it's a lot easier to focus on a single pin. And if you have a set target at 17 yards, at 20 yards, you're better to set the one pin to that yardage and just pluck it off, pluck it off, pluck it off. But when you're hunting, the animal might not come where you expected it to. So it might be at 10 yards, might be at 15 yards, might be at 20 yards, might be at 30 yards, and it's gonna move. So by the time you get your shot, it might have came in, been at 20 yards, but by the time you get your shot, it's at 15 or 25. So you use the multi-pin sight. Back here, I have a hind sight, which that actually works like a peep sight. And you line this X up with the center pin here. It makes a halo around here like the peep sight on your compound bow, which actually makes it more like a scope, so you know everything's lined up. You know your bow is not cantered to one side or the other. You know it's not, you know you're not torquing your string. You know you're not, you know you got everything right, so your shot's going to be consistent. The only difference between this right now and a compound bow is this is way more reliable and I don't get the let off. So you lose speed. But the reliability, by setting it up like this, you got the reliability of your takedown recurve bow, but you got your dead nuts accuracy you have with your compound bow, minus the let off and the speed. But I would be willing to sacrifice that in a long-term situation to have something that I know is going to last me. And you can also make arrows for this, where with the compound bow, I wouldn't be making arrows with that. I'd be very, very eerie about doing that, because they actually switched from wood arrows after they started making compound bows that were much, much slower than that, because they were exploding. So they had to switch to aluminum, and now they've went to carbon fiber. And so trying to make arrows for a compound bow out in the wild just accelerates it too fast, and they're going to blow up on you, and then you could end up with splinters in your arm and everything. As I have the same problem with the bolts on the crossbow be kind of scary. And when it comes to broadheads here, you kind of have basically 3 different types here. You have your 3-blade. You can also have 4 blades and stuff there. You got your mechanicals, which are usually fly very well, and then they also open up to make a massive cut, but they waste a lot of energy doing so. And the 3-blade, 4 blades are going to take a lot of energy to get through an animal as well. So if you're using a recurve bow where you're only going to get about 170 feet a second, you're going to want to use a 2-blade, like this Magnus Stinger here. It's a 2-blade cut on contact. It has to be cut on contact, and you're only going to want a smaller blade, because if you start getting into the huge blades, that's all right with my compound bow, that's all right with my crossbow, but when you're getting into more of a traditional bow, or even an abomination of one, it is 2-blade cut on contact, because you're not going to get the pass through you want with something like that. But how about we do some shooting, and I'll show you the accuracy. So 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 27 yards, or fishing or hunting on the water. That's why I say this is the ultimate survival bow.